All right, welcome everyone to today's episode of the MGCIubs Club Spotlight. I'm joined today by
Urso, representing MGCIubs.
and our guest Victor.
I'm a senior clubs coordinator in SAC.
So, what Club Spotlight is we're hoping to spotlight some clubs at MGCI by talking to student leaders around the school. And so today, Victor will be talking about a couple clubs that you're a part of. We'll be talking about DECA, FBLC, and Debate, but I guess we'll start us off with Ursel.
All right, so I'm going to be on this podcast from MGCIubs, and so I'm just going to ask Victor just a general question. Could you just introduce yourself to the general public, some things about you that people should know, some like hobbies, some things you like to do?
Yeah, so I came to TOPS for STEM, but since then I've transitioned to being a yapping main. So as you can see from the clubs I'm in, FBLC, DECA, and Debate, I do a lot of public speaking. I'm pretty interested in business. I'm also involved in SAC since I enjoy being more involved than just the level of clubs and trying to organize clubs and promote them at our school.
All right, let's just start off with FBLC. Could you tell us more about your exec role at FBLC and what is FBLC basically?
Yeah, so I'm the club president at FBLC. FBLC stands for Future Business Leaders Canada. We recently diverged from the US, so now the competition is exclusively in Canada. And essentially it's a really big business competition where students are able to explore different areas from like accounting to economics to personal finance. There's some other events too, like healthcare or coding or like public speaking, so it's really varied and a lot of students can find different areas that they might be interested for future pathways.
And how would a member want to, like if a member wanted to join, how would they do so?
Okay, low-key sign-up's already closed, but MGCI FBLC on Instagram, or, okay, you could try and find me on Discord, but you can also find me on Instagram at VictorJang0505.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned something about events at FBLC. Could you just talk a little bit more about the type of events that people can do at FBLC?
Yeah, so the national competition is basically a 2-day thing in February. It's in downtown, although there's also online components. So there's 3 main types, I guess. There's exams, which I'm sure a lot of students are used to at school already. There's case study events, which are exams, plus you also do some yapping, and those are ones that I like the most.
Okay.
And there's also events where you kind of prepare something like a business report. And honestly, those are most useful for future careers, but I'm also pretty lazy, and most of the students in our clubs, I feel like it's a lot of work to do, so most of us prefer to do exams or just a case study and exam events.
Okay. I don't want to spoil too much about your future plans at FBLC, but I noticed that you were a member previously for FBLC. Do you want to talk about some of your experiences beforehand?
Ooh, okay, so it's actually kind of unfortunate that I got diverged from the US because this year earlier, actually me and 4 other members of MGCI, FBLA then, we went to Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And we got to compete at the National Leadership Conference, which was super fun. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore, so it's just going to be the Canadian Conference. The Canadian Conference is still quite fun though, since you get to go downtown and talk with friends and kind of just hang out after your event is done. You also get to meet people from other schools, which is probably honestly my favorite part because you don't get to see these people often.
Yeah.
And you kind of just talk on Discord and whatnot.
Okay.
So that's kind of what the event is like.
Is there like FBLC kind of clubs like all across Canada?
Yes, so I believe there's 2,000 students that go to a competition every year. There's 100 plus chapters, and currently there's a lot of new chapters that are being added in this year, so the organization is growing really, really quickly, even though it diverged from US and obviously lost to US competition, it's still very, very prevalent.
So each chapter is each school? Is that how it works? All right.
Yeah. Oh, also there's like community chapters, so like in Thornhill, instead of like St. Robert having their own chapter, like all the schools kind of congregate and made a big chapter.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. On the note, but let's just wrap up some things about FBLC. Do you want to talk about maybe one future plan you have, one thing you want to accomplish during your time as president of FBLC?
Yeah, what do you want people to kind of anticipate coming up?
Ooh, that is a good question. Honestly, I just want to make sure that people are hyped up enough about the Canadian event, so CNLC, and we get a lot of people to come in person. So, like historically, for the last couple of years, FBLC has in large part been online because of like COVID, obviously, and so a lot of people don't go to a downtown conference because they just like write the objective test online. And I think that's probably the most exciting part, to have everybody downtown. You don't have to stay overnight necessarily, or I wouldn't expect that of people, but to like come hang out and maybe as like a chapter to like, you know, go get food or like talk about our events. I just hope that we can bring a lot of people downtown this year.
All right. That seems like a good bit for FBLA. Let's move on to DECA. Could you just tell us what your exec role is at DECA?
Yeah, so I'm vice president at MGCI DECA.
Mm-hmm. What does DECA stand for?
Congratulations.
DECA stands for Distributive Education Clubs America.
All right. I actually get asked this question sometimes. Could you maybe expand on this? What's the difference between FBLA and DECA?
Or FBLC.
Or FBLC,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so both of them are relatively similar in terms of having a structure of you compete at like a provincial or national level, and then, well, until this year obviously, you would go to internationals in the US and then compete there against like all the other states and Americans. But I'd say the biggest difference is probably within the events themselves. So while DECA is very much focused towards marketing, like even the finance events, like I did FTDM at internationals earlier this year as well for DECA. Even that event, we had like marketing components in our finance case study, whereas FBLC has like solely exam events or events that are like focused on like healthcare. Like you don't see that in DECA, so FBLA is a lot more broad spanning. Of course, FBLC has taken most of its events from FBLA.
Sorry, what is FTDM?
FTDM, okay, that's Financial Services Team Decision Making. Basically, DECA uses acronyms for all of its events, so like AAM, ACT, which stand for like Apparel, Accessory Marketing, or Accounting Application Series. So yeah, you'll find out more about those if you're in DECA.
All right. Just on that now, if someone's interested in joining DECA or interested in finding out more information about DECA, what's a good place to find more information?
Yeah, so MGCI_DECA on Instagram. You can also contact me about it on Instagram again. You can also find, I guess, Alex, so he's the club president. I think it's just Alex Zhang on Instagram. I forgot if he has anything behind that, but you should be able to find him since most people from our, like a lot of people from our school follow him.
Is registration for DECA still ongoing, or is it also closed for this year?
Wait, that one's actually hard closed.
Okay.
So it's like a provincial thing as opposed to FBLC where it's like the chapter. So next year, if you're interested, I guess you could join. But otherwise, it's closed for this year's members.
When does registration normally end? So like next year, when should people kind of be looking at DECA?
Yeah, so DECA is actually quite a hard deadline. That happens very early every year. It's early October. So I think it closed October 9th, October 10th this year. DECA usually starts within the first 3 weeks of school. So before September 20th, we're going to have our kickoff meeting. And then you can join in and find more about what's going on.
All right. So people listening to this might be wondering what would being a part of DECA look like. So were you a part of DECA last year?
Yeah.
All right. Could you just talk about like how your role was, how your experience went, and what can people expect if they were to join DECA?
Yeah. So DECA is actually very, very exciting because of a prospect of the trips, I guess, and competing international. So in both grade 9 and grade 10, I competed internationally. And I competed in very, very different events actually. So like I said, DECA is mostly focused on marketing, but even then they do still have a variety of events. So in grade 9, I basically played like Roblox Tycoon Simulator. That's the closest thing I can like ascribe what I did. And I went to internationals and I won. And then in grade 10, I did a very, very different event. It's like a role play plus an exam, which is most events in DECA.
So like you would speak to someone kind of?
Yeah. So it's kind of like this, except
it was marked.
Except it was marked and is like supposed to be more business focused. And then we in the club, basically we try and train you for these. So we give you tips on doing like your exams. We show you how to do role plays and we judge your role plays with you or your teammate. And essentially we try and push you to do well at regionals and provincials, and hopefully you can make internationals and go to the US with us.
How many people tend to make provincials and internationals, I guess? I'm assuming everyone makes regionals?
Yeah, so automatically everyone makes regionals. MGCI DECA has been relatively successful in the past few years. So most of our members end up making provincials, even though the cutoff rate is something like 50%. And then in terms of internationals, we actually also have a pretty good rate. So while most schools, they only have like 1 or 2 ICDC competitors, we consistently send like quite a few. So last year we had 11 qualifiers, I believe. The year before that we had 5. And those are like compared to other schools, like major schools that have like 200 members, they might send like one or two oftentimes.
All right.
So we're quite good at DECA actually.
We're just curious, where was ICDC last year?
ICD 2023 or 2024?
Both.
2023 was in Orlando,
Uh-huh.
and 2024 was in Anaheim. If you qual for this year's in 2025, so this term, you'd go to Orlando again.
Sounds pretty fun.
That sounds sick.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk about your final club that you're involved with. You said you're involved in debate club this year. So what's your role in that club?
Yeah, so I'm also vice president in MGCI Debate.
All right. So I guess the name kind of spoils it, but like, could you just talk about more about what debate club does, like some activities they run or something like that?
Yeah, so obviously we argue, but the type of arguing we do is BP, so British Parliamentary.
Okay.
Is essentially there's 4 teams, 2 proposing a solution and 2 arguing against a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially in like BP debate, you get slotted into a side and you need to argue for it regardless of what you're slotted into. And we essentially train members on how to give better speeches, like different strategies within different types of motions and rounds. Motions are basically like what you have to propose. So example motion would be this house would ban zoos.
Okay.
This house would be the actor. And you might have to argue that we should ban zoos or that you should not ban zoos. And then we also try and send our members to tournaments. They represent MGCI. Historically, we have also been quite successful in debate because we have a lot of yappers at MGCI.
So is it also kind of like a DECA and FBLA or FBLC where it's kind of like this big kind of like governing system where you move from one round to the other, or is it kind of more just like you go to like tournaments and like each time you see how well you do at that specific tournament?
Yeah, I think the latter is a bit more accurate. So rather than it's kind of like one shot, if you like mess up then you're just screwed. And debate is a lot of tournaments over the course of a year. So large institutions like universities, so Western, Ottawa, McGill, U of T, all these universities tend to host tournaments that you can go to. There are also like independent tournaments that are hosted, so sometimes high schools might host some, or maybe like schools that teach debate, so like Olympiads or EEC, they might host their own tournaments. And essentially you can go to these tournaments. The debaters who do well at one consistently tend to do well at others, since it's kind of like if you get good then you usually win. But sometimes you go to pop-off tournaments, and oftentimes it only takes like a one breakthrough tournament before people just like start winning a lot. So
Okay. And are people still able to join MGCI Debate?
yeah, so debate is open anytime. It's not like one big event, so given that there's tournaments all over the year, we're willing to take in people and train you at any time.
And how would people join if they wanted to?
So debate.mgci, I believe, is the Instagram. The presidents are Oriana and Lillian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember their exact Instagrams, but you could probably find them, or you could just contact me again, and I can redirect you.
And since you can join at any time, is this for debate? Is it more like drop-in meetings, or like can people just like is it based kind of on going to the tournaments, or is there more of like a lean back club feel where it's like if you want to just come and I guess hang out and do some debate with people, you can just do that?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit more lean back. So it's like we're going to be talking about arguments today and how to construct them properly. You can come join us. Preferably, you come join us, I guess, is the attitude. And I think in debate, a lot of the times, it's something that you either get sucked into deeply or you just kind of drop. Because it's very, I'd say, addicting if you really fall in love with a sport. I mean, you just like argue one round, and whether you win or you lose, you just want to argue again, or you just fundamentally like don't become interested in the activity and you don't go down that loop. So hopefully we get as many people as we can addicted into it. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. Okay, that's a fair bit about clubs and your roles at clubs. I'm just curious, how do you manage your time among all these clubs? And I think some of our viewers listening to this probably have the same question. Is there some advice or some strategy you can give to them, or maybe just talk about how you manage being in all these clubs? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot, and based on from what I've seen you are doing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, work ramps up. And
Whoa, where's the enthusiasm?
No, but that's part of it, right? Like, if you enjoy your clubs, then it's not really work. Like, because if you like the people that you're working with and you like what you're working towards, then it's oftentimes quite fun. Like, I genuinely enjoy debate. I go to debate tournaments all the time. So, like, teaching people about debate is, well, it is kind of me debating to like the audience, but it's
Yeah.
also like something I do enjoy because it's an activity that I'm very, very involved in. Same for DECA and FBLA or FBLC. Like I like talking about marketing strategies or international business.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things do interest me, and I really do like the people in the club as well. So like in FBLC, Eileen is an awesome vice president. She does a lot of work and helps out a lot. And the execs, like if you like communicate with them and you delegate work, oftentimes you're able to get by quite well.
All right.
I guess like do you have any final thoughts or any questions for us? Anything you would like to add? Maybe a shameless plug.
Definitely plug all your club socials. I think
all
some
my
people
clubs.
who are interested in joining your clubs based on what you've talked about would probably be at the very least interested in seeing what your Instagram page has to offer.
All right. So MGCI _ FBLC,
Mm-hmm.
MGCI _ DECA, and debate.mgci are the Instagrams. You should also follow SAC because they're pretty cool.
Yes, at mgci.sac.
Yeah, I think one thing I just like to plug, it's not about myself or my clubs, is if you're in grade 9 or 10, you should, I know it's like late October, you should check out as many clubs as you can. I think that it's important to be open to different interests.
Mm-hmm.
Like as I started with at the beginning, in grade 9, I was a heavy math nerd. I was sure I was going to be an engineer or something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my parents would probably call my career path unemployed, but I'm still proud of it, and I think it's a very interesting career path I found fulfilling. So in business, in public speaking, I really enjoy it. So I'd say check out as many clubs as you can and see what you like.
So I guess you would say that you enjoy kind of what you're doing at the school a lot more than when you came in grade 9?
Well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was less experienced in grade 7, 8, 9. Like all I knew was math. I didn't know about debate and DECA. I didn't know there's fun stuff out there. But now that I do, it's a little bit hard to go back. And my element mark is reflecting that.
That's his math teacher, by the way. But I guess to round off this this club spotlight episode, I'm gonna plug the MGCIubs Instagram.
Yeah.
That's MGCIubs. That's our Instagram, and we have a weekly forecast every single week, kind of talking about what's up next week at the school. So any events, for instance, from MGCI Debate or MGCI DECA that they want to run in the school, that would show up on there.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be having more of these club spotlights, so make sure to stay tuned. Arso, anything you want to add?
Nope, I just want to say thank you all for listening. Thank you so much, Victor, for coming and joining and being our first guest for our first ever rendition of Club Spotlight. And we thank you to our viewers for listening all the way through. And if you have any suggestions, any advice, any feedback, any comments, please feel free to reach out to us on our Instagram, as Kenny mentioned, at MGCIubs. And once again, thank you for listening, and we hope you have a good day.